You're listening to The Bird Bath, presented by the Fountain Report. I'm your host, Ryan Leach. Welcome back to The Bird Bath. Each week, we scrape the surface of the news you need to know, so let's get into it. Kicking us off at the start of this week is a Q&A with the FDA. The FDA put out a long story, or maybe a formal letter, however the government wants to call it, right? About veterinary client-patient relationship, prescribing and dispensing animal drugs, and telemedicine. So this was a list of hot button issues that the FDA addressed and threw their wording behind, or really just, as they said in the statement here, the federal requirements relevant to aspects of veterinary practice. So the statement from the FDA starts by saying the FDA has received questions from interested parties, wonder who those are, about federal requirements related to a veterinarian's role in dispensing prescription animal drugs and the establishment of a veterinary client-patient relationship, which we all know as a VCPR, in the course of practice. The following Q&As only cover the veterinarian's obligations under federal law. There's a big point here as well. Veterinarians should also consult their state licensing board to determine if there are additional requirements at the state or local level. So they went through quite a few different things, hitting on just an understanding of what the federal requirements are for license holders nationally or federally, I guess. But as we all know, there's things that can supersede that or contradict it on state level laws. And it's something that is a consistent issue, not just in veterinary medicine. But they talk a lot about the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which is the FD&C Act. And what they are talking about in that was the discussion around the veterinarian's role in dispensing prescription drugs. So it does talk very clearly about that. I don't know if there was really a big issue in that sense. I think they were looking to just set the ground level of who can dispense medications or dispense drugs, pharmaceuticals or prescription drugs. They also talked about the need for professional supervision or oversight, which definitely hits on some of the conversations that we've been seeing and hearing. We talked about it last week, even with Colorado looking at the VPA role and things in that sense. And then the part, though, that I think really stuck out and is probably the thing that everyone's interested on is the two questions. And I'm going to read them pretty much verbatim here, maybe with a little context. But is a VCPR required when approved animal drugs are used on label? And see, I thought I was going to just go straight to it, but here we go. So we were talking about the previous question that they addressed was extra label use, which I hadn't dove too much in, but I had some really interesting conversations around that when I was talking with some people at the Casey Animal Health Corridor Summit that do generic manufacturing and all of the things that have to happen in that sense to take human drugs and apply them to animals, as well as reallocating an animal drug for a different species or a different breed or anything in that sense. So they were discussing extra label usage here. And then, so the question, VCPR required when approved animal drugs are used on label. And the FDA said federal law requires that a licensed veterinarian have an established VCPR to prescribe the extra label use of approved animal or human drugs and to issue a veterinary fee directive for a VDA drug. Although federal law does not establish specific VCPR requirements relating to the on-label use of approved animal drugs, you should consult your state licensing board for more information. Then the big question that I think a lot of people want to know is, can a veterinary client-patient relationship be established through telemedicine? Now, this is the FDA talking about federal requirements and laws that they have on their books and how they think that relates to the VCPR. And so what they said, and I'm going to read it straight through here, the federal VCPR definition includes the following requirement. The practicing veterinarian is readily available for follow-up in case of adverse reactions or failure of the regimen of therapy. Such a relationship can exist only when the veterinarian has recently seen and is personally acquainted with the keeping and care of the animal by virtue of examination of the animal and or by medically appropriate and timely visits to the premises where the animals are kept. That's the end of their quote there. But continuing on with their answer, therefore, for the purposes of the federal definition, a valid VCPR cannot be established solely through telemedicine, for example, photos, videos, or other electronic means that do not involve examination of the animal or a timely visit to the premises. However, once a VCPR is established, telemedicine can be a useful tool for maintaining the VCPR. So, kind of a bit of a gauntlet thrown down there by the FDA in their definition of the VCPR. It does go pretty directly against the state level rulings that California and Florida have on file. The California bill AB 1399, which went into effect at the beginning of this year, they put in a lot of availabilities to be able to prescribe, dispense, or administer drugs, medications, and all of the things around that do increase ability or the flexibility of doing these sort of things in a virtual fashion, which a lot of people in turn call an e-VCPR. So interesting or a bit wild take here. It's something that a lot of people are discussing, and it branches us out into the conversation, right, of states' rights versus federal law and where those things carry over. I know this is going to be a statement that's going to be heavily leaned upon by a lot of groups that don't want to see VCPRs created or want to make sure that a VCPR is only created when the veterinarian has had hands-on access to the patient. So definitely an interesting one. I'm going to link the message here so that anyone can see it. And I think it's important as well. I'm also going to link the AVMA state legislative updates because they put together an update for each month. The most recent is July 2024, talking about the different updates that each state has. And it's pretty important because it does allow you to see what's going on. So it hits, if you go all the way back to the beginning of the year, the Colorado initiative for the mid-level practitioner, the idea around that was put in there. The New Hampshire bill that recently was put into effect that allows people that are unable to sit for a test to be able to have a temporary licensing. Obviously the Colorado, the Utah initiatives, the all types of different initiatives that are pushing for or against VCPRs and eVCPRs get hit on there. So it's definitely important to check out. I think a lot of people will find interesting things, and it's important as well, as it said in the FDA statement there, that you do take the time to make sure that you are meeting with your local VMA. I had the chance recently to sit down with some folks from the Texas VMA, and they're always looking to have more people participate and engage and be a part of what's going on, because that's where you can have your voice heard on what you want your representatives, which is what your VMA is, the way that they represent you within your state, as well as the AVMA, the way that they represent you across the entire portfolio of what the practices have and the rights of veterinarians to practice in ways that they want. So definitely an important piece, something to keep in mind as you are going into your continued hot button issue. Our next story comes with a bit of math, maybe. I guess it's something that had to take a little bit of extra reading here to fully understand. But the headline is: the Better Choice Company has signed a definitive agreement to acquire SRx Health for approximately $125 million. Now, that sounds like one thing, but let me get into the nitty gritty of what the actual story is here. It's actually a reverse acquisition. SRx Health is a significantly larger company than Better Choice Companies, but Better Choice Companies is traded on the New York Stock Exchange American as a publicly traded company. And so SRx Health does look at this as an opportunity to expand their portfolio as well as utilize that Better Choice Company name to be able to enter into a publicly traded business. So SRx Health, which if you're not familiar with, they are one of the largest specialty pharmacy networks in Canada with 35 specialty pharmacy locations, 40 specialty health infusion clinic centers, as well as 4 clinical trial sites and 2 wholesale distribution facilities. Now, it is not a veterinary business. SRx Health is a human healthcare and a healthcare business in general. And so their acquisition or reverse acquisition of Better Choice Companies is adding Better Choice Companies as a veterinary business within their portfolio now. They are still going to be traded at the current time, but as the Better Choice Company. And if you're not familiar with Better Choice Company, you probably know their super premium pet product brand, which is the Halo brand. Over the past few years, maybe 3 or 4 years, Better Choice has been seeing some real difficulty with their stock price. From late 2019, I guess almost, 5 years ago now. Blows my mind that's that long ago. They were over $1,000 a share, and now they're trading in the $2 to $3 a share range. So they've seen a major loss in their total value of the business, and their market cap right now is just a little bit over $4 million. So they are doing this acquisition. It's going to be at the end of it, they will have Better Choice Company still existing, but SRx Health will own approximately 75% of the Better Choice Company, with 15% of the company still held by the publicly traded company shareholders. So it's a little bit of a confusing one as you look at the numbers. I had to read through it a couple times to wrap my mind around it. But what you could just take away from this is that there is a large Canadian healthcare company taking on the growth and future of this company, Better Choice, here in the US. So kind of interested to see. The stock did not do great. There's some unpleasant news that swirled around it a little bit as I was digging a little bit deeper. They put out some additional balance sheet updates. There was also a law firm that was asking for a investigation on a fair price for their public shareholders. So things still developing here. I think we'll see if there's a lot more that's going to happen. The overall problem that comes, and it's something that we've talked about with other publicly traded companies, is that when you have these things and the stocks begin to see a downward trend, well, they either come across issues where they become delisted, they come across issues where they don't hit the fiduciary duties or requirements to stay as a publicly traded company. And then perhaps they do something like what we're seeing here with Better Choice, where they are doing that reverse acquisition or reverse merger almost with SRx Health. So I'm going to keep my eye on it. I think more to come in this story, but one that's probably going to be interesting if you like to stay up to date on what's happening with some of the healthcare companies coming into the US market or the veterinary market as well. Finally, some really cool news out of the veterinary colleges. So, the University of Georgia's veterinary school is adding a mobile vet clinic to assist local shelters. So, the UGA put out a statement saying that their shelter medicine program received a grant of $750,000 this summer from Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation to build a mobile veterinary clinic aimed at providing a training opportunity for veterinary students during clinicals and providing veterinary care to animals in the Athens community and beyond. Still a little bit of a ways out. They custom build out these mobile clinics, and this isn't a smaller van. They're looking at a clinic that's going to have 2 rooms, with one room serving as a surgical suite with enough surgery tables for multiple procedures to take place at once. So not a small place. The other half of the unit would be a surgical preparatory area for physical examinations, and additional equipment would include anesthesia machines and refrigerators for vaccines. So it's going to be cool to see this. It's going to be something that other universities have done. Mississippi State was the first vet school to introduce a mobile clinic into their rotations as well. And then Oregon State partnered with the Oregon State Humane Society to do more of this also. It's a neat way for students to be able to have the opportunity to get more hands-on experience with spays and neuters without just having it be part of their externships, or if they're doing a community clinic. It allows them to really get more hands-on surgery experience. And the University of Georgia is planning that they're also going to be doing some soft tissue procedures like mass removals, amputations, and they really want to find a way to be able to increase the care for shelter animals so that they can become healthy, adoptable, and reduce the number of euthanasias in the area. So the mobile clinic business, though, is also something I think is going to be neat for new students to be able, or new graduates to be able to have experience in. It's a very rapidly growing sector of the veterinary industry. We're seeing a lot of mobile businesses on the rise. There's companies like Vitama with a franchise opportunity for people to be able to franchise their own mobile clinics. There's corporate groups like the Vets and Better Vet that are rolling out all across the country. So a lot of opportunities for people to engage in a different way of practicing medicine. It's funny to me because I remember when we had the rush of food trucks, which is a different business, but it was this situation where people that were from a different generation and were looking for the opportunity to be entrepreneurial without being stuck in a brick and mortar facility, or having that opportunity to make their own schedules and their own times, their own ways, doing it as food trucks as opposed to building out traditional restaurants, or using it as a gateway to be able to build a following or a client base in the veterinary aspect, to then be able to build a fully sustaining and thriving clinic. So really cool to see the use of the veterinary schools and the use of veterinary schools utilizing mobile clinics as well. So lots of fun things there. Finally, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that reached out. You guys were vocal and fun, and really enjoyed everyone taking the chance to say hi, push on some things that they want to continue hearing on the show. Your feedback is always super valuable. And for more on these and other stories, join us by subscribing to the Fountain Report. There's a link in the bio. And don't miss out on any episodes by subscribing and rating the show. For the Bird Bath, I'm Ryan Leach. See you next week.